this is the first time anywhere in the world, and this happened twice in China in the last few weeks, where courts actually essentially companies were sued because the reason for firing somebody was that they saved money by using AI. And the court said that's illegal for you to do that, and it was enforced. And now the guy actually has to get hired back.
Hello and welcome to our Big Bang Tech Report. I'm very happy to say hello to Alvin, who is on the show. And where are you right now, Alvin? Where in the world?
Back in Seattle. So looking forward to our conversation. But I'll be on the road for the next 3-4 weeks again soon. So you won't be seeing this background after a while.
So you are traveling a lot, and you're spreading your word. And right now, I have the impression that we are waiting for summer, and summer is coming very quick. And but we do not have the clothes, we do not have shorts, and we do not have sunscreen, lotion, and all this stuff. And I have the same impression with AI. Right now, we talk a lot about it, about agents, and they will come. And right now in Germany, they said, okay, we have a wake-up call, and next level AI is coming. AI is, it can see, it can hear, it can plan, checks, and so on. And where are we right now, in your opinion?
I think that the technology is just progressing too quickly, right? They're just every week there's a new breakthrough, and it used to be OpenClaw. Now the Hermes agent is now the leading open router token leader. So these things are just moving too quickly, and it's hard for the industry and the world to adapt.
I've got an example yesterday. That AI is leaving the box, that AI is not only a chatbot anymore, that how we is using it. If we need a speech, we talk to a ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT is giving us a speech. And yesterday, I talked with a guy from Siemens. Are you familiar with Siemens? You've heard of Siemens? Yeah. It's right now the biggest company in Germany. It's a stock exchange after SAP, and before it was Buhr, but then they bought Monsanto in America, and now they have had a crash or something like that. And the Siemens guy told me that in the assembly line of the great car factories, there is right now AI is looking at the assembly line, and it's working a lot, and it is shifting the work in another way. It's much more productive. And that's maybe a reason too that the stock exchange is quite doing well. And even if we have a crisis everywhere in the world, the oil prices are high, the people can't buy anymore so much, but something is changing. You have the feeling that there is a big change right now.
Yeah, I think this technology is being integrated into all sectors, right? And so whether you're talking about manufacturing or services or finance, it's all coming. And it will make the world more efficient. It will make productivity go up. Now, the question is, what is the kind of labor impact of this, and the long-term economic impact, and also how does this affect margins and the profitability of these companies? It may help a few people or a few companies do well, but then may also be temporary.
Yeah. So, that's more or less, I think that's the mega trend we see. And above the mega trend, we see a lot of news. For example, Elon Musk versus OpenAI. What's going on there?
I think the last couple of weeks that was the big news. A lot of people think it is more of a drama between two people, but really it's a redefinition of nonprofits and its relationship to the economy. Because what they're really suing for is, can a company who started out as a nonprofit become later a for-profit, taking all the money that people donated for public good into something that goes into somebody's pocket? So in a way, I'm not a fan of either of these people right now, because I feel like they're doing it maybe for ulterior motives. But the decision of this case is going to have long-term impact. Yeah. So we need to watch it carefully.
But right now in Germany, nobody is talking about ChatGPT. You know what? All the people are talking about Anthropic. Why do they do that? That's incredible what this company is doing right now, right?
No, Anthropic's been doing some amazing things in terms of, particularly, it started out really end of last year with Cloud Code, and when that product came out, it essentially allowed people to have real productivity gains in coding and later on in other areas. And they've been really shipping. They've been shipping products every week, and the capabilities of their models are were for a time the best in the world. I think over the last few weeks, ChatGPT is actually caught up. Right, the 5.5 version of GPT had really, in some ways, surpassed the capabilities of the latest um, Anthropic models, because Anthropic actually held back their biggest model, for either security reasons, or some people say it's because they just don't have the compute capacity. So I think this is also what we talked about before, is that there's no long-term winner, that things are going to go back and forth. And this race really right now is not between U.S. and China. The real race right now that people are pushing for is between the U.S. labs and themselves.
But the compute capacity they have bought where right now? Do you know that?
Oh yeah. So Elon Musk just gave access to 200,000 chips to Anthropic, and it's actually going to be a big help for them, because I've been using Cloud recently, and you run into your limits very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So now they've actually doubled their limits, and I think most people are now relatively satisfied with the capabilities, both the speed of progress, as well as just how much capacity for tokens that you have on the subscriptions. But I actually want to kind of dive into this a little bit, because most people think that that's a commercial agreement, but at the end of the day, actually it helps Elon more than actually it helps Anthropic.
All right.
Yeah, because I don't know if you know, but the XAI team and offering is really getting very little market traction.
Yeah.
So all of those chips were actually unused. In fact, recent reports came out that they were only 11% utilized. So essentially 90% of the time is just sitting there. And so for Elon, if you have all these billions of dollars of equipment sitting there and not being used, it's actually a waste.
Yeah.
So now they've actually guaranteed that there's a person paying them for these chip capabilities. And given that he's about to go IPO soon with SpaceX, which now owns XAI, this is a revenue stream that he needs. And then also, more importantly, is because he has a big grudge against OpenAI, as you know, and so helping your enemy's enemy is just as good as hurting your enemy. So he's doing this in a way to punish OpenAI. But lastly, it actually also is a way to control Anthropic, because now Anthropic's dependent on Elon Musk's mood on things, because he now controls a big one of the big portion of supply for compute. So all in all, it's a bigger win for Elon than most people realize.
And then there is another player in the field. It's the Pentagon. What's going on with the Pentagon right now? Why are they so interested in AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think ever since the Mythos release, the Pentagon has seen AI now elevate in its awareness to say, hey, this is something that we have an advantage of, and it's our secret weapon. Unfortunately, they got into a bit of a fight with Anthropic over access and control of that solution, and so now they're going back to all the other companies. And they just signed 7 contracts with everybody except for Anthropic for kind of next gen AI solutions. So it's integrating them into military services. All of those companies have agreed to essentially not influence the Department of War over how that technology is being used. So.
And then, you know what? My favorite company, Google, has had some news in the health field. What's going on there? Is it an official news, or was it somebody who gave it to the press?
Oh, no. I think they released their clinician product, and also they just released their Omni model, the Gemini Omni. So this has actually been a couple of weeks that's been pretty busy for them. And this is really about integrating AI into industry. And healthcare is one of the biggest industries in the world. So
can you explain what's going on there? What's going on in the health field, to understand, everybody can understand it? I go to the doctor, and then
Yeah, so essentially, this becomes the guide to the doctors so that they can make better decisions, right?
Yeah.
A couple years ago, there was something called open evidence that came out in the US, and something like 60 to 70% of doctors right now are using it. Essentially, it's a custom AI engine just for medical cases, and it's only trained and based on real medical studies. And so now, you avoid a lot of the hallucination issues you have with general based AI systems. And I think that's what they're doing essentially, is following that model to say, hey, we're going to make a custom vertical version of AI specifically for doctors so that we avoid the hallucination, and everything that's in there can be cited and attributed to some real study. And I think that's gives confidence for the clinicians, the doctors, to apply the answers in a way that will affect lives.
So
So,
is it
so I think
a system for the doctor, for the patient, or for both?
it's mostly for doctors, actually.
Hmm.
It's for doctors to use to advise them. So it's an augmentation system, not a replacement system. Now, OpenAI did come out maybe a few months ago with their kind of more consumer-oriented system to
Hmm.
say, hey, you don't need to talk to a doctor, you can just talk to your AI. And I think they're using it as a way to create more traffic. But so these are different approaches. I honestly, I think right now the Google approach is probably more responsible, because you now have a doctor that will essentially filter the AI and then help disseminate what's useful. Whereas when everybody thinks that they're a doctor, sometimes they may make some poor healthcare decisions.
And there's a big discussion every time in the health field. Jensen Wang, the CEO of NVIDIA, says in the radiology field, you need more doctors than ever because there are more scans than ever with the machines, and they have to explain what's going on with the scans. And he said it's the opposite, that with AI you need more jobs and not less jobs. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds nice to say things like that because everybody's so worried about kind of job displacement that this makes people feel better.
Yeah.
I think there are certain areas where this might happen, but it's also because there were so few radiologists that's the case. But the issue is that these AI systems are not just attacking one particular segment; it goes across the board on
Mhm.
all white collar labor, and there will not be more replacements for all of these areas, right? Because not everything is so understaffed as the medical areas are,
Mm.
because it takes a decade to get your medical degree often, and going through all the residency and everything, and so not everybody wants to put in that time. But now every lawyer, every consultant, every accountant, every office worker
Yeah.
is exposed to AI. And how do you say there's going to be more of all of those things?
Yeah. So talking about efficiency, we have to shift our discussion to China because
Yes.
that's land and of efficiency, and there are some news about DeepSeek and what's SubQ. I have never heard of it before, but you mentioned it before. Please explain what's going on in China.
Yeah, so I think recently DeepSeek is now seeking to have their first round of funding. They were always privately funded before by the founders, so they never raised around them. But this is their first round of funding, and they're going to raise something around $7 billion, which is the largest private raise ever in China,
All right.
and will value them around $50 billion. The funny thing is, when they started to raise about 2 months ago, they were valued around 10 billion, and so they've gone up from 10 to 50 billion because now everybody wants a piece of them. And it's going to be invested by large corporates like Alibaba and Tencent, but also some of the state-owned funds that used to be targeted towards semiconductors. So I think this allows essentially the government to say, "Hey, I want a piece of the action, and I want to, make this have some level of control as well." Right? So I think this is kind of similar to what's happening actually in the US. If you look at OpenAI and Anthropic, they're also invested by the Googles and the Microsofts
Of course. Yeah.
of the world here. So it's a mirroring. But what it does show is that companies that were in the past, essentially non-revenue focused, will probably become revenue focused because their investors are going to care.
But,
And
and
yeah,
SubQ,
so,
what about SubQ?
yeah. So SubQ is actually an American company,
Yeah.
or it's done by an American lab, and essentially it's a way to solve some of the issues associated with transformers. So transformers is what all of the major large language models are based on, but the attention mechanism essentially allows or requires very large memory footprints to be able to operate. And so this allows you to they're essentially saying, don't focus on everything, don't pay attention to everything, only pay attention to the most important things, and they can reduce essentially memory usage by like 50x. And so if that's the case, then you don't need these giant server racks to run. You
Yeah.
can maybe run at home on laptops or maybe even phones in the future.
So that's
So,
not a good news for NVIDIA.
I mean, it's good and bad, right? I think we've been talking about this for a while. I
Yeah.
think in the long run, more and more AI inference will move to will move to the edge, which I think is good for the world because then everybody gets access to the benefits of AI. But the training will probably still happen in the large server racks because you need just a big amount of data and a lot of systems to build the original core frontier models.
Yeah.
But then they can then be distilled into some of these more optimized models that will run everywhere. So it's a kind of a good and bad at the same time.
And now we have something like a showstopper. And I think in every show we're talking about AI is replacing jobs, white collar jobs, and so on. And then there is a news from China that there is a court and said, okay, we can't do it. We can't expire or erase these jobs. And what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a concern that's happening everywhere in the world, but this is the first time anywhere in the world, and this happened twice in China in the last few weeks, where courts actually essentially companies were sued because the reason for firing somebody was that they saved money by using AI, and the court said that's illegal for you to do that, and it was enforced, and now the guy actually has to get hired back. And either that or they have to negotiate an agreement to be fired. So I think this actually is a good precedent because it shows that human dignity can be preserved even in an age where efficiency is the primary objective of companies. And I hope that other countries actually maybe take some learnings from this because if we don't somehow protect the dignity of labor, there will be a major uprise. There will be, essentially people in the streets because there's going to be mass layoffs, and those people are going to be frustrated and have no other means to survive. So we need to find a way to create a smooth transition.
So were you astonished that this news came from China and not from England or from America or even Germany?
Not really, because I feel like I don't know if a lot of people don't realize, but China actually is the most heavily regulated AI market in the world right now. Right? They
Mm.
enforce more than a dozen policies that keep that slows down their own AI industry in a way to create either higher public good or social stability or copyright rules or reducing AI safety risks, right? So they're doing the things that I think the world should be doing, but they're actually putting it out and enforcing it. I know Europe has the EU Act, but it doesn't really come into effect until August this year.
Mm.
So really, China's been doing it for the last 2 or 3 years. And things like making sure it's not an addictive system, making sure that everything's transparent when you use AI and is putting material that has to be properly labeled. Liability of a company can be directly affected if bad things happen due to their models. That's not happening anywhere else in the world. And so for them to say, hey, the effects on labor is important, that comes from technology, comes from AI, I think it's really consistent with what they've been doing on the other regulatory side.
Mm-hmm. We started in the US, then we switch over to China. So let's talk a little bit about Europe, or especially about Germany. Tomorrow I have an interview with a guy from Bavaria. You have ever heard of Bavaria?
course.
There's beer and all this stuff, But
Yes.
Bavaria is a silicon state in Germany, is a Silicon Valley of Germany, and the minister tomorrow is here. And how do you see Germany in this race? Are we in the race? Are we outside of the race? And what's your view on our country right now? And I will ask him tomorrow what you are saying right now.
Yes. Well, no, I think it's good that you have an opportunity to talk to people at a level of influence.
Yeah.
And I think that the race narrative is actually just a bit of a wrong way to think about it, because when everybody thinks that there's a race, they think there's only a one winner. And the reality with AI is that there are going to be multiple winners from diffusion, right? Not necessarily from invention. There may only be one company that invents it or one country that invents it first. But the beauty of of software in general is that software wants to be free. Software is something that can be diffused very easily, because it's one USB stick anywhere or one IP address, you can download the software. And so it's less important who invents it, and it's more important who diffuses it into the marketplace. And I think this is something that Germany and actually all of Europe can really take solace in that you don't have to be the inventor. In fact, a lot of American progress came from taking ideas that came from Europe, from the UK, right, and from Germany. And so they just diffused it better for a period of time. And I think right now, a lot of the success in China actually came from ideas that came in other parts of the world. They just diffused it better in China. Well, now when this technology is either invented in China or invented in the US, Europe should just think about, how can I diffuse it? How can I do it without crushing the economy, without creating social unrest? And I think that's something that Germany and actually most of Europe does better than most places in the world, is that they protect the people, right? They have policies around it, and they have social safety nets. And I think that should be helpful.
And yesterday, I have read a wonderful news that the new NVIDIA is coming from Germany. You know that? It's in the quantum computer. Wait. It's the quantum computer field, and that we are doing quite well there. And the biggest threat is that Americans will buy them. But I think too, Matt, in the quantum computer field, there's a lot of things are going on right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think quantum is an important technology, but I also feel like there's a lot of maybe misunderstanding of how much impact quantum can have, because quantum is not a faster computer. It's not a better computer. It's a specialized computer that works in certain segments of industry or certain types of calculations. And right now, it's a relatively narrow set of activities or types of problems that it can solve. And so it will not replace traditional GPUs or CPUs. And so it's good that I think Germany's getting these kind of breakthroughs, and I think everywhere in the world there's smart people. So it's going to happen in a lot of places. But I wouldn't over-index in terms of the economic impact of this. I think it'll help in certain areas, and particularly probably in things related to cyber and encryption and maybe stochastic forecasting. But those are not necessarily going to lead to major economic impact near term.
So leave us this news that we have two good news. The first one is that the new NVIDIA is from Germany, and the second one is we win the championship of soccer in the United States. It's not sure, but we try it.
Well, yeah, the World Cup is coming, so
The World Cup
it'll
is
be
coming.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, one other good news is I think Europe can win the diffusion race. I think that's the race you should be focused on, not on the invention race, but on the diffusion race.
Yeah.
One other point that we didn't talk about is that this week Trump is in Beijing talking to Xi Jinping, and I think AI and technology will be one of the big topics. I think they said essentially it's that the 3 T's is tariffs, technology, and Taiwan. So I think the technology side will be the one that we care the most about, and I was fortunate enough to have some impact in terms of some of the agenda for the technology side. So I think we're going to hear some good news this week.
So what are the real good news in this? Do you believe there will be a breakthrough, and that with these two big guys, they will end the war in Irania, or what do you see?
I mean, I feel like that will definitely be a topic. But I really don't have any view in terms of the
No.
kind of foreign political side. But I feel like there will be some breakthrough in terms of the willingness to cooperate on technology and the maybe reduction of some of uh, the the technology export controls, and maybe some more cooperation on safety. So I think those are things that will help the world and actually grow the economy and make the world safer, which are all things that I think everybody can agree on.
And the good news is they will meet each other in a few days, and that it's fantastic because until a few months we didn't see that, and it couldn't be that they will cancel it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think the next in this year they're going to meet maybe 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah.
So I'm optimistic that there will be some positive traction.
So we are already we the final question, and the normal final question is what's on your mind right now, and is there something what you want to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think I recently I've spent a lot of time with folks in the defense industry, and there's just a very big misunderstanding that AI can and should be used as a weapon, right? And it is something that will give a country a decisive strategic advantage. And I think that's something that is creating a push for a lot of bad decisions or dangerous decisions in the world. And we really need to move away from that because the more you understand and the more you dig into how AI is actually being applied um, in the military, it usually takes somewhere between 1 and 2 years between the invention of a technology before it actually gets diffused into military. And by that time, the commercial version, the industry version that a consumer can use, is actually more advanced than the one that is being used in military. And so we really should limit how much we position this as a national security race for AI, and really focus on separating the two. Where certain things let's not cooperate on, but there's a lot of things. 98% of the things that can be done for the world. AI can provide a positive value, like we said earlier, all the public good. Whether we're talking about solving medicine issues or making better materials or making the companies more efficient, these are all things that we should and can cooperate in, and just kind of keep the military stuff separate from that. And if we did that, I think that the world would be a safer place, would be a more flourishing place.
Now, that's a dual use of technology. You can use it in a bad way and in a very good way. And we hope that a lot of people will use it in a good way for a better life. And let's talk about it. And it's incredible how much you know and what are your messages. Thank you very much for that, Alvin. Thank you. This was a Big Bang Tech Report, and but we will go on. We will see you again in a few days, and we are happy if you switch on, if you accompany us. And Alvin, what's your last message for our viewers?
The world has huge positive potential. You have to understand it and then take some action to support a positive path. So part of that is actually subscribing and watching us more often.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, and see you soon, everybody.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye bye.